I know smart people when I see them. And the smartest people in my school were criminals.
They were criminals?
Well, they were engaged in illegal activities. The things that they were doing were selling and buying of items that happened not to be legal, like drugs.
Though Sam Myers grew up deaf in inner-city Baltimore in the 1950s, he beat the odds, became a swim star, an academic standout. But the fate of his peers contradicted what he felt was later being taught in economics, that being smart translates into higher lifetime income, as shown on the marginal productivity curve. The dependent variable, lifetime income, goes on the y-axis. On the x-axis, the independent variable, productivity, a measure of a worker's skills at creating value. In a modern economy like ours, these are generally intellectual skills, thought to derive from intelligence. The model that's assumed then, although not always explicitly stated, is that as intelligence increases, you should become more productive. That, in turn, presumably drives the variable that depends on productivity, the dependent variable, income. In short, Myers thought the message of economics was, the smarter you are, the greater your lifetime income would be. The problem was, the lifetime income of the smartest kids he knew, which should have been up here, was falling off the chart. But you need to know a little more about the kids in his neighborhood.
Now, they're also buying and selling legal things outside of the legal economy. Like, for example, shirts and jackets and jewelry and so forth. So people would drive up and open up the trunk of their automobiles and open up shop, almost like in an open market. It's just that the goods may or may not have been obtained through legitimate channels. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that some of the brightest, smartest people in the class, the people who are able to engage in intricate numerical computations, without writing anything down. I mean, like the numbers game. There was betting on different types of games, like, for example, on the horse races. But in order to avoid prosecution, people needed not to leave any form of evidence. So they had to keep all these numbers in their head. And they had to do intricate computations like present discounting, the discounting, deriving interest rates, rates of return, and so forth. And these are very smart people who were able to engage in these activities, and they were 14, 15, 16-year-old African-American males.
And you mean mathematically smart, what people sometimes call classic smart, right?
The fact is that is classic smart. That it's precisely the type of smarts that get you into Harvard Business School. It's precisely the type of smarts that permit you to do well on the quantitative section of the SAT. It's precisely the things that we look for at the top institutions in America.
The institutions that then funnel people to the best-paying jobs in corporate America.
Well, how do you explain how these people who are so smart, by the time I became 19, were overwhelmingly in jail, dead, or incapacitated in other ways, like addicted to drugs and so forth. So, in other words, if you look at conventional microeconomic theory, you would believe that there should be some relationship between persons' lifetime economic opportunities and their productivity and their innate ability. Okay. What is a puzzle is how can such smart people end up with such low economic prospects?
So what's wrong with this picture? Myers believed the marginal productivity curve was teaching him something about the difference between the economic context he grew up in and the one implied in the textbooks. You needed some way to cash in on being smart over an entire lifetime, but Myers and his classmates could see every day that for most African Americans back then, intelligence or even more basic skills did not translate into higher lifetime income. So many of the smartest kids tried to make as much money as they could as quickly as they could, with consequences that in the long term were often disastrous. So you mean instead of a direct relationship between ability or intelligence and lifetime income, you've got an inverse relationship?
Well, an alternative interpretation is that the conventional wisdom about the direct relationship between ability and productivity and lifetime income, that conventional wisdom might be accurate for some parts of the population, inaccurate for other parts of the population. And so there might be some institutional impediments that prevent the ability of high ability to translate into lifetime income.
So perhaps in this case, there might be two marginal productivity graphs. It's a lesson Professor Myers has been trying to drum into his students since he began teaching.
And so that's one of the examples I like to try to give in the classroom of challenging views about marginal productivity theory, challenging views about the appropriate role of innate ability in determining lifetime income. And so by giving an example that is opposite from what you see in the textbook, it forces you to understand what the textbook is saying.